Thanks for stopping by the 33 Kings studio to hang out with your host, Uncle Jay. Now, this is episode 2 of the Clay County War. If you haven't had the opportunity to check out episode 1, we'll go back through the videos and do so. And while you're at it, go ahead and click that like and that subscribe button, and let's talk about a bloodier family feud than the Hatfields and McCoys ever thought about being. Well, the Garrett, Baker, White, and Howard feuds run back into the 1840s. Two of the most powerful families in the county, the Whites and the Garretts. And at the head of the faction is Judge Beverly White, related to various lawyers, congressmen, and governors. General Theophilus T. Garrett, leader of the opposing clan, is a member of a family distinguished in this country and in England. Members of both factions in this feud, with the exception of the hired retainers, are an advancement upon the illiterate clansmen of the Philpott and Griffin vendetta. The Whites, with all their financial connections and their political connections, well, they financially had the ability to carry on a quarrel with all their enemies better than the rest. Now, General Hugh Lowry White came to Clay County and opened up a salt works that his brother James had bought. It was called the Outlaw Collins Salt Works. And then a friend of his showed up named Daniel Garrett in 1806. And the two quickly formed a place called Goose Creek Salt Mine. Now, unfortunately, the Baker, White, Howard, and Garrett accomplishments was overshadowed by all the family feuds. In 1844, Clay County's most powerful families found themselves in what would become a generational-long battle. Now, it was all because Dr. Abner Baker had shot and killed his brother-in-law, a saltworks owner, Daniel Bates. Now, the consensus was among all the families was that he should be hung, but oddly enough, he wasn't hung for the killing. It was because he held charges against his own wife's family, the powerful Clay County Whites. Now, the Bakers was allied with the Garretts, who held nearly as much power in the salt trade as the Whites, which set them up for a quarrel. Well, with the White-Garrett feud becomes the Baker-Howard feud, and over the years it goes a step further and goes to the Garrett, Baker, Webb, McCollum, Philpott, White, Howard, Griffin, Benj, Hall, Morris, and Bundy. And, well, I guess just for the sake of brevity, well, it just comes down to, it's called the Baker, Howard, and White feud. But what it really boils down to is, old Dr. Baker called the yellow cur that Bates himself owned, no better than Bates. And then he killed Bates. And then Bates called the Howards, the Whites, the Bakers called the Garretts, and were joined by the Webbs, McCollums, Philpotts, and pretty soon, everybody was fighting and killing, and finally the governor had to be called in. Now, here's what I got to say about this story so far. Basically, back then, folks didn't really have a whole lot to do. They were mean, they were clannish, they were uneducated, and they just about soon kill you than look at you. But now we're going to go a little bit further in the story because, there's more to it. There was over 150 people died. But anyway, if you like what we're doing, hit that like and subscribe. Let's continue the story. In 1844, Dr. Abner Baker Jr. married his wife, Susan White. Now, this is the start of the trouble. Abner was the county's first court clerk, and he was a good surveyor, but he also had a reputation for some erratic behavior and a very bad temper. After the wedding, the couple moved in with Daniel Bates, who had married Abner's sister, Mary, and Bates was also a prosperous salt maker. But apparently this didn't hold well with the parents in the marriage because they didn't build their own house. Anyway, after the wedding, Abner showed signs that he was displaying some obvious signs of mental illness and insanity. And well, the family just said, well, he's not playing with a full deck. It wasn't long until Dr. Baker started accusing Susan of having affairs with other visitors, servants, and even Daniel Bates, her own father. Now, the Whites had a pretty dim view on the situation, and they tried to get Susan to move back home. His family begged him to see a doctor, but he would storm out of the house, and then he would come back later. Anyway, he returned one day from Tennessee, and he went directly to Daniel Bates at the salt works and shot his friend in the back. Now, as he lay dying, Bates dictated his will, and he also directed his son to take revenge on Baker and see that he was prosecuted or killed, and he left $10,000 to make sure that it was done. Now, this in fact split the community from those who did not think a crazy man should be hung and others who thought that he should be strung up with little fuss. Now, if unsure what to do, Garrett refused to hand Abner over to the sheriff or the Bates family. On September 24th, he was took to two magistrates, one of which was Garrett himself, and they deemed him insane and turned him over to his two brothers, both of which were doctors. But he fled from Knoxville to Cuba, where they said that he might regain his sanity. Now, this didn't sit well with the Whites or the Bates family, so they persuaded the Commonwealth to indict him for murder. Now, doctors testified that Abner was suffering from a mental disease called monomania, but this didn't sway the jury. He was found guilty on October 3rd, 1845, and was led to the gallows and hanged. Now, this drove a wedge between the powerful families, and the Bakers were terribly enraged because the Whites had helped bring Baker to trial when they knew that he was insane. And this drawed some serious lines and fueled the feud even further. Well, thanks for sticking with Uncle Jay through Episode 2 of the Clay County War, one of America's most bloodiest family feuds, and we've only covered just a small portion of it. But anyway, so you don't miss Episode 3, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, and that notification bell. That way you know as soon as it comes out. And thank you very much.